Hello, everybody. Alrighty then. Just do one more thing here, and then welcome to the mic stand, everybody. Today is, of course, Sunday, March the 8th, 2026. Of course, it is the first day of daylight savings time. So hopefully everybody's been able to make the adjustments to that. Friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to or will try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Anyways, tonight we're continuing our trip down comics history lane, going back to August of 1940. This week we'll be focusing in on the company that eventually became Harvey Comics. We'll be reading out of Champ Volume 1, Issue 11. We'll be reading such features as The Champ, Neptina, Liberty Lads, and the last Robin Hood Jones story. So, four stories tonight. Of course, depending on how much discussion we have on them, we don't know if we'll get through all four, but we'll try our best. Of course, before we do get started with all that, let me I'm going to hand it off to my co-host for a moment to let him pitch anything he wants to pitch. I mean, you know the shtick right there, Metal? You want to share any
Do I? Maybe I will fame ignorance for comedic effect. I don't know. Anyhow, I am the Metal. I am first and foremost the creator of the fictional world X Dynamis Chaos, which you can find over at my website, xdynamischaos.com, which is a world of, I would say, myths and madness with various comics and web novels that you can engage in. I also happen to live stream very frequently over on the Vomitorium, among many other things I do. Mostly I've been doing video game stuff these days. I just kind of been a little too busy with stuff I'm not allowed to stream, and so I haven't been doing work streams. I've been video gaming during my unproductive time in the daylight hours, and then spending my evening hours doing hush project work that maybe people will eventually see.
Huh. Okay. Well, okay. Going back to something you just said that kind of caught my attention. You're not doing the Vomitorium because there's stuff that you can't talk about?
Well, the main reason I stopped doing the show is my computer is just not as reliable as it was before. And I don't like doing a show like this, like an actual feature show that has a set schedule, if my computer is just going to decide it wants to stop streaming 10 minutes into the show. That's one of the reasons why I stopped. If I get a newer computer, maybe I'll do it. So I was just going to
right now. You're not the only one who's been having issues with that too, because Rex from Devil Flyers also having that right now as well. He hasn't, so.
And I'm very particular about how I run my stuff, so that's why I'm not doing that. I was going to do very frequent work streams. I might do some other types of streams other than that too. I might even just like read public domain and other fair use works sometimes, maybe once a week. But I was going to be doing work streams a lot at night, but the current stuff I'm working on, I can't show. It's for other people. So it's like maybe some stuff eventually, but not the stuff.
The stuff you're working on, is it one of those like NDA deals?
Not really. It's just like, first off, it hasn't even been announced that I'm working on it, so that's part of it too. And I think it's part of it. One of the things I'm working on is a project that has been on like hiatus for a while that was supposed to be fulfilled a long time ago. And if they find out that somebody's working on it, then that gives expectations for when the project is going to come out. So that's part of it.
So basically they don't want to be hassled. When's it coming out? When's it coming out? When's it coming out? right?
Mm-hmm. More or less. I'm also currently working on a cover for the Canadian Shield's Amazon release. That is public knowledge. I just don't know if I want to do that on stream because very little of it's going to be done traditionally, and I can't really stream the digital part. If I could stream the digital part, like my computer was doing that well, then I would have no problem streaming the Vomitorium as a show.
Right. Right. All right. So Exonomist Chaos, and then of course some of the works you're working on, and of course Vomitorium. And I've been dropping in to like and share.
Oh yeah, I see you.
Yeah. Even when I, sometimes I'll just go in to just like and share, then leave again real quick. I won't even say hi because I'm doing other things. But
yeah. But a lot of times, most people, I'll just lurk, unless something comes up and I happen to be paying attention, have something to say. I'm usually just sitting there in the background watching other people's streams. Like I leave yours on most of the time, even if I can't watch it.
Well, I hope so. I hope you found some. Well, I know you at least found some of what I said when Tuesday and Wednesday interesting because we got into that whole discussion on those meddling kids tropes.
I'll be honest, I don't even remember that.
Well, it's kind of funny because initially, so I guess Cartoon Network did it. Cartoon Network and Boomerang did it, I think in the 90s or early 2000s or something like that. Initially, it was just covering just Scooby-Doo. And then they turned it into a block that featured not just Scooby-Doo, but other shows like it. The whole idea of the group of teens with the anthropomorphic pet who who would go out and solve,
yes, I've seen most of them.
Most of the times it was an animal, but you had a couple occasions like Speed Buggy where it was where it was a car, a funky, I don't know if you'd call it Joe.
Some of those groups that don't even have an anthropomorphic thing, right? Like the Amazing Chan Clan.
Well,
I would say it's in the same category.
Theirs is not as highlighted as it is in other ones because I think they do have a cat in it, but the cat.
Their cat is. I would not call it anthropomorphic. Their cat is basically just a cat.
Yeah, but I think. Yeah, I guess I can see your point. It doesn't talk. It doesn't stand upright. But in some respects, though, like a lot of Hanna-Barbera's characters, animal characters, even the ones that that aren't as deeply anthropomorphic still will show some level of like human intelligence in some respects.
Oh, yeah, but that's like every animal, right? Like that's just the personification of cartooning an animal because you have to kind of give them some type of like human personality for them to function as a character.
Mm-hmm. Well, even Tom and Jerry, who Bill Hanna and Joe Barrera created for MGM, even in the now granted over time, Tom and Jerry did become more and more anthropomorphic. I mean, now there were times throughout the 40s and 50s when Tom and Jerry would have like a line or two where they actually spoke, but most of the time they didn't speak. They still stood upright. Initially, Tom started out walking around on all fours, and then gradually got to the point where he was standing up on his hind legs.
Well, even Tom's like facial design and stuff was very, very different at the beginning of the show than like later on as like Chuck Jones would end up like caricaturing him even further to get that look that we're used to seeing now for Tom. Right.
Yeah. Well, I remember because, a lot of times when I'm watching the Golden Age cartoons in the afternoons here, I'll also be, of course, looking up some of the trivia notes on IMDb of these shorts, right? And there's a number of times they do talk about how in some of those earlier cartoons where Tom was more cat-like than human-like, where
he had like almost the design of a street cat.
Huh?
He almost had the design at the very beginning of like a streaked cat, just like on the top.
Mm-hmm.
It's like almost like a slightly other blue.
Right. Yes. Anyways, so quick question, of course. Did you want to do any reading tonight, or did you just want to do commentary?
I'll start with commentary. I'll tell you if I change my mind.
Okay. So the 4 features we're going to go over tonight are the Champ, which is kind of a sports, sports detective kind of comic. That's 10 pages. Then Neptina, Queen of the Deep. That's a 5-pager, or that's a 6-pager, and then the last two are 5. Liberty Lads, which is set back during the Revolutionary War period, and the last Robin Hood Jones story, which is I think modern day. But so with that, let's go ahead and get started on the readings here. Let me pull that up. And of course, it goes for everybody, including metal. Again, if anything that anything that we as I'm reading this, or as we're reading this, if anything catches your attention or you want to comment on, feel free to do so or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions as best as we can. So here we go. Number 11 October, of course, the cover date, 10 cents. Champ Comics big contest for cash prizes. And that's one of the other features Dan O'Dowd, the human meteor. And this is probably one of the better scans. I think this might be a reissue, not like the original. I just kind of skipping through it just to give you a chance to see the. So here we go. Here's the first story we're gonna get into: The Champ by George Little. The Champ, his pal Henry, and Sue Katsu have arrived in Mexico to retrieve the Marlin formula that Sue has mailed to Dr. Koch. Dr. Marlin's secret tonic has given the Champ physical perfection, and he wants to make it available to all youth. La Rosa Cantina. I'd better phone Dr. Koch and make sure he's home. Good idea. There's a phone booth. Wow, what a tough joint this is.
He says before we can actually see as an audience what makes it a tough joint.
Maybe a little foreshadowing.
Maybe it's just supposed to be the guys in the poncho in front of us. I don't know. Growing up in Texas, that just looks like normal people.
Looks like we have some comments here. Hey, Vitchozo, thanks for popping in. All right. So here we go. Dr. Koch, I've convinced Champ that you and I are on the level. We're coming out to your place now. Hide the formula and say it has been stolen. Well, at the other end of the line, all right, but I must have a half hour before you get here. Stall them somehow for a while. So the girl he's with here is maybe not on the up and up, huh?
Yeah, I think when she mentioned formula here, I think I was actually on this show when we covered the first one because I'm vaguely remembering the origin story for this character.
Well, yeah, he was given like
Yeah,
as a child he was given a super serum, and he was basically trained and taught to like peak condition.
yeah, yeah.
What are you reading? Well, we're reading from Champ Comics, Volume 1, Number 11 from Harvey Comics. The first story here is the Champ, the title character, as it were. Um, so, yeah, I think you were with me before for this one, now that I recall.
Yeah, because I remember there were a bunch of people trying to get their hands on the formula. Most of that issue was him like playing keep away in a way.
Yeah. It's all set. Let's get out of here. I don't like the looks we're getting. I know how I can stall for time and perhaps get rid of the champ for good. Uh, Passing close to a table, Sue kicks out viciously. Oh boy. Diablo, senorita! You kick my leg! What mean you? I did no such thing. Take your hand off me. So she's gonna stall by getting herself in trouble there.
Yeah, so then he has to come to her rescue.
Yeah. The lady says you're mistaken, senor. You are an apology. You smart Americano, eh? I show you. My plan is working. Wait a minute now. If the champ gets killed in this brawl, I won't have to worry about his getting the formula.
This is a really bad plan. Like, do you know nothing about this guy? Why don't you think he could just kick all of their butts?
Well, maybe she's thinking that they'll just overwhelm him with numbers.
Yeah, or pull out knives or something. He'll still probably kick all their butts.
Yeah. Get Sue outside, Henry. I'll join you in a minute. But as Henry starts to obey, let me go, you apes! The little gringo stay and watch the fight. No? I cut the Americano to ribbons. Look out for that bottle, champ! A little placement kick. Little placement kick. You know what a placement
Does he
kick
think this is football?
is? Yeah. Basically, place kick is when basically the hiker hikes the ball to the holder. Holder holds it down for the kicker to. It's usually done for kickoffs and field goals. So, just a little trick I learned from a Japanese student. A little judo there going on, huh? Jiu-jitsu, and well done, too. Better take this gun he dropped. Now that I've had my exercise, we'll leave if you don't mind. Whew.
Can we scroll back up to the panel where he's throwing him? I'm just trying to make sense out of that image. I think the color is messed up. Okay, that one of those green arms is supposed to be the champ's arm, and it should be colored blue. the one that's like holding on, but the color's messed up and it looks like he gave the guy 3 arms.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Well, actually, but you look at the next panel there. That it looks like it's more of a like it looks like the guy that just got thrown. He's got a T-shirt on under, and then he's got like I guess
No, I get that, but that is clearly supposed to be the champ's arm. One of those, like the one you could see his hand holding him. I know this throw. I've done judo, and that should be a blue jacket to match champ's jacket, but it's colored green. That is we caught a mistake from the colorist.
well, yellow or green, yeah. Well,
Yeah, whatever it is.
well, the one the and well, if you look a little closer too, there's a little there's if you look up just behind Champ's head there, where the guy being thrown shirt is, right? See, there's a bit of a crease there.
Yeah, I get
Now,
that. That does not change
granted,
anything what I said.
now, granted, with what I'm thinking here, it still shouldn't form so perfectly. But a theory that I'm going to throw out there as to a possibility of this is that when he's throwing him, part of the shirt is coming more loose to make it more look like he's like trying to like cover like if you had a jacket, okay, sports jacket, that's what it's called. If you had some kind of jacket on, right?
Yeah, like a gi.
And you're grabbing by the wrist there, I would imagine that the jacket might fly a little, in other words, the jacket's not going to, unless you have the jacket.
None of what you're saying contradicts what I said.
What was that?
Is it none of what you're saying contradicts what I said? Right? That yellow part that is closest to us is Champ's arm. Yeah. It is connected to his wrist. You can see his shoulder from it. The colorist messed up.
Okay. Yeah, I see your point. I was just offering kind of a slightly different scenario there to where that could, maybe it wasn't his arm. Maybe it was just a case where the jacket flew out a bit in such a way. But even in that, though, even with the theory I put out there, it would be a little too perfect for it to form such a perfect.
Yeah, for it to be the shape of his sleeves.
Right. I was just offering a slightly different theory, but I see your point there. Yeah, that might have been. You're probably right. It was probably more of a coloring error there.
Also, hello, it's Courtney's Fellowship Oddballs.
Oh, hey, Courtney. Thanks for popping in.
A fellow judoka.
Yeah, I think Courtney, if I remember correctly, Courtney, I think I met you through Apex, right? If I remember correctly. Was it through Apex I think I met you?
Which then would also know that is, while the form for getting somebody over your shoulder is correct, is holding the wrong arm. I mean, you would work with whatever you got if somebody extended that arm to you. But typically you go into the body mass on the same side of your shoulder. Right?
Oh, yeah. I've seen I've seen judo before where if somebody is throwing a punch at you, what you do is you go into and then roll your shoulder into, like if he's throwing a right hand, when you're grabbing it, you basically would lead the arm.
Right you also, this is the worst grip. This is the worst grip too for a normal person. You would want to grab their sleeve and maybe their opposite collar to get them over. You just get more leverage that way. This only works because he's like superhumanly strong.
Yeah. Well, you see how he lands too there.
Yeah.
So, anyways, anything more you want to say before we continue on?
No. It's just for some reason while you were scrolling and reading, I thought I saw what looked like 3 arms, and I just needed to double check to see what happened, and I see why I thought that, and it's entirely on the colorist there.
All right, so Right. So we'll continue on here. Better take this gun, he dropped. Now that I have had my exercise, we'll leave if you don't mind. Whew. Gosh, Amp, you sure showed up that gang of greasers. You were very brave. We couldn't let a little thing like that stop us now. The champ won't give me any trouble so long as he thinks I'm on his side. Anyhow, I've given Dr. Coke plenty of time. At this very moment, Dr. Coke clears his office of emissaries of several gangster nations. Gangster nations? Wow, that's an interesting term. I knew there were gangsters, I knew there were nations, but I never knew there were gangster nations.
No, it makes sense. Absolutely.
Good day, gentlemen. I shall let you know tomorrow which bid for the formula I shall accept. I have a little business to attend to right now. This is Dr. Coke's house. Now we'll have Dr. Marlin's formula to use for the benefit of the whole human race. Hello, Dr. Coke. This is the champ and his friend Henry. Glad to know you, sir. Hope you've taken good care of the formula. It's at my mountain laboratory. We'll drive right out there and get it.
Why is his laboratory in a mountain? That's already suspicious.
I think they're about to address that here.
Yeah.
I think they're about to address it. Champ, there's something about this doctor. I don't like him. You were saying, Metal?
Yeah, dude, he's super suspicious.
You're imagining things, but we'll be on our guard.
And I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of somebody who's not a reader, who saw the conversation between him and the lady earlier, right? Like, I'm looking at it from Henry's perspective, and like, he's entirely correct to be suspicious of this guy right away.
Yeah. A cave? I have a fully equipped lab inside. I don't like to be disturbed in my work. I left the formula in here. It will be a great relief to get my hands on it at last. The box is empty. The formula, it has been stolen. I can't understand. I'm positive I left it here. Let's look around the cave. Let them look. They'll never find it. Look, Doc. That kid is over by the... But before Sue can finish... Hello! Let's see what happens if I push this.
This is the last person you want wandering around a highly technical facility.
What makes you say that?
Because he's willing to push random buttons he doesn't know what they do. You know, like, keep him away from the rocket launch center.
Kind of like a little kid, huh?
Yeah, you know, it's like Dexter's sister Dee Dee. You know, what does this button do? Push.
Yeah, well, let's find out how things go here. Look, a secret room. Drat, you get away from there. I'll find out about Coke now, but I can still pretend to be on their side. Oh, she's playing both both ends here.
Oh yeah. Also, like, what a horribly stupid doctor. Why would you make the button to open a secret room just obviously there on a panel? Why not hide the button to open the door in some way as well? The
Well,
button should be equally as secret as the room.
Yeah, we've commented on the thought processes of the writers of this period before, from their scientific knowledge to their logical reasoning. So, right?
Yeah, like I know. Well, it wouldn't be cliche at that time because of when this came out, but it would be seen as cliche now. But like, if Henry was just like leaning on the wall for no reason and he accidentally bumped into a hidden button, that would make a lot more sense because at least the button would still be hidden. Why would you leave the button to a secret room just there on a panel with a bunch of other buttons?
Well, again, maybe it's because, well, apparently that secret room was right next to the panel. So
Yeah.
maybe that panel, all those buttons, all are connected to that room. Maybe that could be it. Possible, right?
Maybe. I don't know. If it was me, if I was like trying to hide a room, I would rig it up to like the thermostat or something, and I would find like a really, really unlikely temperature for somebody to set it to. Like maybe set the air conditioning down to 23 degrees or something. Cause by that point, if you needed it to be 23 degrees, you'd probably be turning the heat on instead. And then if it sits there for 4 seconds, now the door opens up. That would be a good way of hiding the access to a secret room.
All right, so let's continue on then here. Fitzjoseph just said something there. Not even a fake book switch.
Or if you just have like the panel of buttons do nothing, right? Because they're fake and there's actually a hinge behind it, like a small piano hinge or whatever, and then you open the panel up and the actual buttons behind the panel.
That guy looks kind of mean, doesn't he?
Yeah, he also could use some more clothes, I think. The caves get pretty cold and damp.
Yeah. Look at that awful creature, Chimp. Ugh. I'm more interested in that piece of paper on the table.
At least give the guy a blanket, He's chained up to the wall.
Well, maybe they did, and he kind of shrugged it off somehow.
Yeah. Or maybe he's just so big that loincloth around him was the blanket. That's just all that it would cover.
This looks like Dr. Merlin's formula. I told you we couldn't trust Coke. All right, I said that wrong initially, but
It's funnier if we just call him Dr. Cock.
yeah, but I think the correct.
It is.
Up until that
is
point,
how you say that name. Correct. That name is pronounced Coke.
Yeah. It is unfortunate you stumbled upon this hidden lab. Now you will never leave here alive. Dr. Coke, what has come over you? Why, I thought... Sue wants to continue the deception. Okay, I'll string along. What have you done to this poor fellow? A little experimenting with the formula. I found an excellent use for it. Chris there is a half-breed moron, into whom I've injected great quantities of the tonic. You see his mammoth proportions.
Well, he's only half bred from a moron. What's the other half?
What good will this experiment do you? Miss Katsu, chain these two to the wall. Better do as he says to. He'll kill you if you don't. If you only knew. I'll sell the formula to my own country. They'll feed it to the army and make them the best and most brutal soldiers in the world. While the doctor gloats, Chris succeeds in weakening his chains, and suddenly, Doctor, torture, Chris! Chris, kill! Chris! He's broken loose! Look out! He's like a wild beast! He'll kill us all! I've got to get free! Champ, don't let him get us! Hold tight, kid! Chris strong! Chris kill all! The monster comes closer. If these chains will only give me room to swing. Grrr! Hate to do this, but it's either him or us. Ugh! Now to get out of these chains. He's up, champ. Duck! This ought to settle him. Let's get the formula and get going. Better take that snake coke with us.
You see, this is why you should always carry beef jerky in your pocket, because I feel like the type of guy Chris is, just being like very simple-minded, wants to hurt people who are possibly mean to him. If you just pulled out some beef jerky and offered it to you, he'd become your friend instantly.
That's a very interesting theory. I mean, I know I go to my corner 7-Eleven a lot and pick up some very delicious tasting bacon jerky from Jack Daniels. You know?
Yeah, you know, it's like a dog, right? Like you give a dog a little piece of beef jerky, and suddenly you're its best friend.
Yeah, he'll be wagging his tail.
Yeah.
Champ picks up Coke's gun and we tamed your pet, Coke. Now we're taking you to the nearest police station. Well, we have the formula anyway. You think you're pretty smart, don't you? Smart enough to take you over, Coke. Sue's gone. She must have escaped. Champ, the giants come too. And here's another horrific scene in the comic. Champ deftly sidesteps and look at that, he's fallen off a cliff there. The poor fella, poor fella will really be better off dead.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone's better off dead unless like they're in maybe a vegetated state they'll never recover from, but you know, it's whatever. Also, hey Natasha.
Well, maybe Henry was thinking that maybe because of his limited cognitive capacity and his, he'd just end up getting into trouble a lot.
Oh, he just needs the right handler, you know.
Well, Well, at least that's what we know today, but back then they probably weren't thinking that. Hey, Ned Suri, thanks for popping in. It is the number one repeat watcher. Yeah, welcome to the stream there, Ned Suri. Now's my chance. While the fools are staring after Chris. Kokaz, hey, come back. Come back here or I'll shoot. Don't let him get away. I'll get him in the leg. What the? Where'd that come from? You kill our boss. Now we kill you. It's some of Coke's cutthroats. He didn't kill Coke though. He kind of killed the giant though.
Unfortunately, he killed the one who was like a danger to them, but like morally not necessarily the problem.
Yeah. This is the only way out. Happy landings, champ. That was a tough climb down, but we're safe now. And we have the formula. Further fascinating, thrilling adventures of the champ in Mexico next month. All right, so it looks like we're done with that story. Yes, we are. So before we move on to the next story, of course, Metal, overall impressions of the story.
Overall impressions. I don't know what I really think about the champ between like the first one that I read and this one. There definitely seems to almost like a game of cat and mouse, but less like a game of cat and mouse and more like a game of fishing where the fish jumps out of the water and slaps you instead of getting onto the hook. Because it seems like they're toying around trying to get like the actual like formula away from champ, and they're trying to kill him because he's a problem to them keeping the formula. And it's kind of just like this game of ring around the rosies the whole time. As an individual issue, I think there was enough action to justify what happened in there, but overall it does feel like we're just like playing ring around the rosies.
All right, well, I guess with that, anything more you want to say about it before we move on to the next story?
That champ definitely needs to trust Henry's gut. So far, he's been right about like everything.
All right. All right, so we'll move on to the next piece of niche. Or sorry, the next story. Sorry.
It's like talk about good gut instincts. He even found the button to the secret room on the first try.
Yeah. Neptina, Queen of the Deep, by Bentley Wayne. Wave. Lieutenant Brad Fletcher, leading a naval expedition to the undersea empire of Amloza. The expedition, accompanied by Queen Neptina, is stranded in uncharted ocean depths. When quote unquote the Norma, their super submarine, is wrecked by giant electric eels. Meanwhile, Brad's friends launch a sister ship, the Kitty, quote unquote, to rescue Brad and the others. So you got two ships there. You got the Norma and the Kitty. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment. So if you want to talk to the chat, I'm off camera.
I mean, if the chat wants to talk, that's up to them. I don't know.
I'll be right back.
I don't know, chat. What did you guys think of the last story? And or are you excited to have an underwater adventure? Because apparently that's what this seems like we're getting into. We're getting into an underwater story. Submarines and whatnot. Submarine used to be one of the biggest genre of storytelling right around that time, whether it was in comics, whether it was in pulps, novels, TV, movies. There was a lot of submarine stuff going around. And then it kind of just faded away. I guess I could see why. Oh, the submarine genre was kind of almost usurped by the like space exploration, space voyage, sci-fi genre. I mean, like Star Trek itself was kind of like a submarine genre show, but in space, and that's kind of like where all of the submarine stuff went instead of being in actual submarine stories.
All right, I'm back now. So, well, if Jozo had something to say, let's see what he has to. So, there was an old superhero called the Shark, who I think predated Namor. Well, no, I don't think so because Namor was pretty early. Namor, because we covered Namor's debut back in like 1940, 1939, 1940, around there. So I don't think the Shark. Like I know of, I think at least a couple of heroes, or a couple of characters named Shark from DC. One of them was a villain though, but I don't think either one of them predated Namor. Hmm. All right, so Norma Kane and several officers watched the completion of a sister ship to the completion of a sister ship to the Norma. When the new sub is launched, we'll set out to find Brad. I'm going to make the admiral give me permission to go. She's quite a little haughty, isn't she?
Oh yeah.
Hold on. I've got to go off camera here real quick because looking at somebody's coming to the door.
If you set up landmines, people can't come to your door. I find it's a very effective method. Oh, okay. So I did check to see which one came out first. They were both in the same year, but the Shark from Amazing Man Comics, I think that's the one he's talking about, which is a Centaur comic production, was October of 1939, which means it came out later than Namor, who was April of 1939.
All right.
So Namor did still just barely beat him out.
Was out of a horror movie idea, not a submarine crew fighting a mermaid. Well, I mean, and I don't know if you've said anything about that, but mermaids have always been somewhat of a troublesome.
Oh yeah, if you go with like an actual mythological view of mermaids, they're basically sea fairies who want to kill you. I think if you wanted to do like a horror movie with something that's like a submarine, unless it's like one of those smaller deep sea vessels that only holds like two people in it, if it's like a full submarine crew, I think you'd want like an entire school of mermaids being the problem.
Yeah. Well, anyways, as we get ready to continue on with the story here. But going back to my comment there, yeah, that lady seems pretty haughty already, like talking about how she's gonna make the admiral give her permission. That's funny. Talking about strong women. My previous experience with Amloza will help them find Brad, Uncle Charles. Very well, Norma. I'll arrange it. Several days later, as the new sub Kitty heads towards Amloza, in a very few hours, we'll know what happened to Brad and the others. Yes, Miss Kane. We are going to dive now.
And so I'm guessing she is the Norma that the other sub was named after.
That's probably a good logical.
Yeah.
Several hours later, officer, um, alert officer at the beam scope shouts, "Slow motors! Something ahead! It looks like a foundered sub." Cautiously, the Kitty circles about the wreck of her sister ship. I'm afraid we arrived too late. There's no sign of life aboard the Norma. They have probably been dead for days. We must make sure of that. There's no doubt about it, Miss Kane. If anyone's aboard the Norma, if anybody's aboard the Norma were alive, we would have had a signal by now. While they're arguing, I'm going to act. Man, this girl is something. She's a doer. Right?
Yeah, how do you know like their communications just aren't out? You could find some other way of signaling, sure, if you know the ship's around, but like you have to manually do like a sonar ping so that they know that it's coming from the ship and not just bouncing off of it or something, you know?
Mm-hmm. We ought to return to the surface at once before something happens to this ship. No, we'll scout around some more. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving these depths until I know there's no possible chance that Brad is alive. Before they even miss me, I can get over to the Norma and investigate. This is Brad's ship, the Norma, all right. If I can only get inside. Oh, look! Oh, it looks like she's about to be attacked by a sea creature there.
Oh yeah, some big crustacean looking thing.
No, no, help!
Listen, man, you gotta lady, you gotta man up. You gotta capture that thing and boil it because that's gonna be meaty.
Hmm. As the beast strikes Norma, dodges the giant claw. Instead of cutting her in two, knocks her sprawling. The blow knocks Norma under the sub. Norma just out of reach of the sea beast.
I know it's hard to really tell which one of those panels should be read first there.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Huh. Unmindful of the drama unfolding outside, the survivors of the Norma argue bitterly. I tell you, Professor Mason, Brad Fletcher, Neptina, and Whitey met with mishap, or they would be back by now. I think we should wait a little longer before we desert Brad's ship. If we all put on diving suits and leave now, we may be able to reach Amloza. Meanwhile, aboard the Kitty, a leak. Looks like someone used that side hatch. I wonder.
That
Huh?
is not something you should do in a pressurized submarine underwater.
Hmm. Okay, I have a feeling there's something wrong with this whole scenario here. You want to explain it?
Okay. Well, so they're in a submarine, they're underwater. This unless there's a separate airlock, which it doesn't seem to be that there is a separate airlock because water is leaking in. That means she opened a door on the side, a side hatch of the submarine while they're underwater. The pressure is many atmospheres higher outside of the submarine than it is in, so water would just come bolting in. But here's the other problem. I don't even think she'd get that door open in the first place unless there was some mechanical structure that opened it from the submarine, because she would not have the force to open that door. Several grown men would not have the force together to open that door.
Yeah, there does seem to be, and you know the term I for these kind of situations. You remember the term I coined, right? For these kind of situations, right?
No, I don't. I just know it's well beyond my suspension of disbelief.
Leap of logic.
Oh, I was expecting something I've never heard someone say other than you, because you said the term you coined. Leap of logic that's a very old phrase.
Yeah, but I'm probably one of the few people who would still use it.
Yeah, but it's like I wouldn't even say it's a leap of logic, right? It's like it's a suspension of all understanding.
Yeah. Well, I just coin everything under that one umbrella, leap of logic.
I guess maybe the writer doesn't know this, right? Maybe we could give that thing where it's like, oh, it's water, right? Like you could easily just open a door underwater, right? Things way less underwater without thinking about how much pressure is being pushed on a submarine that is just air on the inside.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about this before, that and I know you and Bardila and Rick, to maybe a slightly lesser degree, of talk. We've talked quite a bit about how a lot of these creators back then, their scientific knowledge was pretty limited.
Yeah, but this should be like high school physics. I think even back then, right? This is like the difference between a single atmosphere on the inside and like 100 atmospheres on the outside.
Yeah, but you know something. I wonder if some of these writers even got to that point in high school.
That's fair. Some of them maybe didn't even go to high school for a really long time in U.S. history. It wasn't until, what was it, like the 50s or 60s? I can't remember exactly when it was.
I think where
yeah,
school,
but high school used to not be mandatory.
Required.
Yeah, like you used to not have to go to high school in the United States. You finished like grade 8 and you could just go on with your life.
I think in some respects over in Japan it's still kind of that way. Maybe
it is. It's just the vast majority of people go to high school.
Yeah, I think in Japan, if because I read about this like a few years ago, because I was researching obviously some of the age issues there and all that, but you know, from what I remember reading, in Japan, you're only required to go to school up until like age 15 or like eighth grade, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you have the option. You can go to high, you have like a number of options once you hit 15. You can continue education, go on to high school, and eventually to university and all that. Or you can go to a trade school and learn a trade and all that, or you can go out into the workforce in some form or another.
Yeah, but in practice, what happens is like 90 something percent of people end up going to high school. And the only people who end up not doing it are somebody who's got like a family business they're going to run anyway. Then it's like, because they've determined, not just Japan, a lot of nations have determined this. They're not the only one who doesn't require secondary school. A long time ago, we determined that basically a 7th grade education, if everybody has that, and we just kind of round up to 8th grade. But if everybody has a 7th grade education, society is better. Like that has been the determinant. Where it's like people know the amount of math that makes things better, literacy levels are better, just like overall science society is better if everyone in your society has like at least a 7th grade education by our standards. So after that point, if you already have a family business, you're like, why am I wasting my time learning things I'm never going to use? Right? You just hop right into the family business and take it over.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know over in Japan there's a few different options. I've heard. Now, granted, a lot of this is just from me watching anime and stuff, but like that's one of the things you were talking about. If they're like going to, basically run a family business. But I know, like for example, from Nana 7 of 7, right? One of the characters in there actually was going on to study to become a Maiko dancer, right? Which I think is some kind of like priestess or something like that. There's some, and some of this too is also, and you see it like in Sailor Moon, for example, where Rey is a priestess. So, and if they're just going to continue on being a priestess, they get a lot of their training at home anyways.
Well, we used to do this with farming, right? Like if you had a family farm, after middle school, you would just go and work the family farm.
Right. Because as a
China
farmer,
still works that way.
You wouldn't need to know more than just basic math, basic literacy, and basic, at least a basic understanding of geography. Because basically, as a farmer, you just, all you really need in terms of like for math, for example, you just need to make sure all your basic functions are correct. To where make sure you're not getting cheated. Money-wise or anything like that. So.
But yeah, other nations, right? So not just Japan, because it's very easy to just jump and focus only on Japan. But China doesn't have compulsory education after middle school. Switzerland doesn't either. And Switzerland is a very prosperous nation. Belgium doesn't have high school compulsory education. Their ends at 15. Germany also ends at the age of 16. So wherever you are at 16, if you choose to, you can pull out. And technically, in many places in the U.S., that's actually still the same. A 16-year-old can choose to quit high school.
Yeah, and in some parts, yeah. Well, it also depends.
And Canada's the same as us.
Yeah,
it
depends a lot too on whether or not they decide to try to become emancipated too. If they can prove to the courts that they can, that they can handle that kind of responsibility too. So.
Well, that's only if your parents don't let you. You don't need to be emancipated from your parents if your parents agree.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, nice little side topic there. Let's get back to the story here. Now we've got to leave. That whole compartment will be filled in an hour. We must get to the surface fast. Lieutenant, Miss Kane is missing. She's the one who used that side hatch. Miss Kane must gone over to the Norma. We've got to get her back. I'll go out and get her, sir. Remember, Seaman Bates, search quickly and carefully, only in the vicinity of the wreck. If you see no sign of Miss Kane, return here immediately. A few minutes might mean our lives. Aye, aye, sir. Bates fails to spot Norma Kane beneath the foundered sub. I've searched everywhere. She's not around. I'm going to make a try for that half-open port. I made it. Now to find out what happened to Lieutenant Fletcher and the others. The survivors of the Norma hear Bates' entry. Listen, someone has come aboard. I'll start the special hand pump we rigged to empty out the chamber so we can see who it is. Someone is still alive. They're pumping water out so that they can open this chamber. Bates tells of the rescue party. This is our last chance. I fear we'll have to leave without Brad and Tina and Whitey. I tell you, they must be dead anyhow. Miss Kate must have met with the same fate. Not quite. Right, Metal?
I guess. She's out there fighting giant pistol shrimp.
Yeah. Bates and the survivors of the Norma prepare to transfer to the Kitty. On the way over, we can take one last look for Miss Kane. Look, Seabees, run for it. They may be the answer to our friends.
Yeah, she's still out there fighting giant pistol shrimp.
We made it to the Kitty. Whew. Too bad about Brad and the others. Yes, but we must get the Kitty to the surface before something happens to us. The Kitty cruises around the Norma. One last look for Brad and the others. Several minutes after the Kitty disappears, Norma Kane regains consciousness. Norma comes to, not knowing the Kitty has departed for the service. Oh, that terrible beast. Thank goodness he knocked me under the Norma. Wonder how long I've been out. The Kitty has gone. They've given me up for dead. I'm down here completely alone. Perhaps I can reach Loza or some other undersea kingdom. If I don't run into any more monsters. At this time, Brad, Neptina, and Whitey are on their way back to the Norma after escaping from the city of slaves. The folks on the Norma must be wondering what happened to us. We've been gone a long time. I hope the sub is repaired. I have a strange feeling something is wrong in Amloza. Look, that creature is attacking someone. Quick, your ray gun. You missed. It's a drizzle. It's a drizzle. This is going to be your. This is going to be you or me, ugly. Now I've got you. After a terrific battle, Brad conquers the beast. Neptina resents the presence of Norma. Oh boy. Jealousy. Green-eyed monster.
Of course. As opposed to the green-skinned monster that was outside.
And so they gave me up for lost and left. Stranded. Now we are in a spot. The land woman always brings trouble. Oh boy. Oh boy. A few minutes later, the group hears a sound outside. It is Mog, the scientist. It is Mog, the fishman from Amloza. Good old Mog. Let him in.
How are you going to let him in?
Your sister, Mercer, has revolted and captured Loza. Only I escaped 2 singleton submarines. That means we cannot return there. I must get help to recapture Amzola. More adventures of Brad, Neptina, and others in the Antarctic next month. All right, so overall impressions.
I'm still worried about the physics of the submarines. That's it. That's been bothering me this whole time. Everything else is fine. Like, it's fantasy. I can think like being on the ocean floor isn't crushing them because they've got special suits that can handle the pressure or something. That's fine. Whatever. How she got that door open is still bothering me.
Right. Well, we've talked about that before too, where like these leaps and logics they do, are at times pretty incredible, right?
If I saw some like mechanical hinges, I'd let it slide. Push a button, the ship itself has the force to do it. I'm just still wondering how that small woman managed to open that door.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from that, it was all right, I guess.
Yeah, maybe they're asking you to suspend a little too much belief, huh?
Yeah. Like I don't know. If this was, I don't know how strong Neptina is. I'm assuming she's kind of like an Aquaman character or whatever, right? If she was the one who opened the door, maybe I'd believe that, right? If Superman opened the door, I'd believe that, but normal land woman who brings trouble, I don't know. I don't believe that.
Yeah. So I saw you and Fizzozo had a bit of an exchange here. Let's see. So are the pistol shrimp the ones who shoot sonic water balls?
Yeah, they don't. I wouldn't qualify it as a water ball, but I don't think that's a wrong thing to say either. It's more of like a jet stream. It's the way their claws are designed, where they basically hydraulically let the water in, and they as part of their snapping reflex, it shoots it back out, and it's basically almost like releasing steam from their hand. It's it could just like destroy things of its size that it hits, like fish that it tries to eat or whatever, just kind of snaps them in half.
Yeah, you know what it kind of what that all that kind of what you're talking about reminds me of. Have you ever seen Filmation's Aquaman show from back in the 60s?
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of it, but I've seen it.
Okay, so in that series they gave Aquaman a few more powers than in like basically the cartoon included. He had certain abilities that he didn't have in any other medium, right?
Yeah.
One of those powers would be the ability, like he put his hand up, right, and form like a highly pressurized ball.
Yeah.
And throw it at what you're talking about there sounds like that.
Yeah. It's just due to water pressure, that would only really be effective in like really close range. And in that show, he could pitch it like a baseball going through the ocean.
Yeah. Well, at least one thing that
Aquaman's magic, I let that slide. He can do things.
Yeah. Well, but even as he was depicted in, because I think it was the Earth 1 version, how he was depicted in that cartoon. But but in all iterations of him, basically his body became accustomed to to being at that depth, and therefore he probably is actually stronger than people realize. Even though his Super Friends incarnation, a lot of people are critical of, because the only power they highlighted there with him, aside, of course, from him being a good swimmer and all that, and maybe having what was his ability to talk to fish telepathically, but living in that kind of environment, kind of like with Superman, and you make the argument with Superman, and that Krypton may have had stronger gravity than on Earth, and that could have led to a possibility of Superman being able to leap or fly.
Well, the main reason they didn't highlight any of his other abilities is because they already had super strong people on the Super Friends, which was really just supposed to mostly be Superman and sometimes Wonder Woman's job. And it's like so many people could just end up doing the same thing. While like Aquaman, even back then, could regularly trade blows with people on the same level of Superman villains and stuff. Like he was in the same tier of strength as Wonder Woman, but it's like, oh yeah, we need another person doing super strength. No, let the water guy do his water things. Talk to fish.
Yeah. Now here's a little insight, and it's still going to be a while before we start reading these. But the Earth 2 Aquaman, one from the Golden Age, and yes, there was a Golden Age Aquaman, believe it or not. Aside from the effects of being raised in a deep sea environment, he really didn't have any. He did not even have any real like superpowers. Even when he talked to fish, he'd talk to them like you and I are talking, basically.
Yeah.
And you could understand him. He didn't have like a telepathic link to him like he did in the Silver Age.
It was more like a Dr. Dolittle thing where he knew the language of the fish, but he could just like talk at them.
So you have actually read some of the Earth 2 Aquaman stories before.
I actually really like Aquaman. I think
right?
Aquaman is one of DC's stronger characters, actually, and everybody gives him a lot of like flack for no reason. And I think it's just because of the Super Friends. They saw the Super Friends and they thought Aquaman was lame.
Yeah, but I've actually read some of his Golden Age stories, and granted, by most comparisons, he didn't. There wasn't anything overwhelmingly special about him. He didn't have any, quote unquote, superpowers. A lot of his abilities were developed. He was kind of like, you could argue, he was kind of like the Batman of the sea in a way.
Mm-hmm. In other words, I have to specify when I say he's one of their strongest characters, I don't mean physically, even though he is a physically really powerful character. I mean, in writing, like he is one of their best developed characters, and you can do a lot with him. Very fun stories, especially when you start mixing in stuff from like Arthurian legend.
Yeah. Well, the thing is too is that I think in both cases he was raised by a lighthouse keeper, Tom Curry. Well, actually, I think actually
He was a fisherman at one point.
Yeah. But anyways, let's kind of get caught up here on some of these other comments here before we move on to the next story, of course. Is it like an eel or some kind of sea serpent? Again, 1940s people weren't knowledgeable.
I wouldn't say that. I think they were a lot more knowledgeable than people give them credit for. But we do happen to fall into a case where a lot of comic book writers were very knowledgeable, because you could jump over to other fiction writers at the time, and a lot of them knew a lot of what was currently known for science, especially in like pulp and sci-fi writing.
Right. Well, you would think that particularly in sci-fi writing, they would actually need to have a little bit more knowledge and understanding of science in order to craft science fiction. I mean,
yeah.
But before you can alter stuff, or before you can throw certain theories out there as to why certain things happen, you have to understand the basics of what you're talking about before you can change it, or before you can make modifications.
Right? I think there's also a difference of care. I think it's less about knowledge. We always try to blame it up to knowledge. I think it's more about care, because you had different audiences. In a pulp setting, like you're actually writing this down as like a chapter that's going to be put into a magazine that people are reading, you had a higher expectation of your audience to so you put more care into getting things as right as you could to your knowledge base. While comics, a lot of them, even back then, people are like, I'm selling this to kids. I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, do the kids know? Will the kids care if the science is not right on something? Probably not.
Right. Right. So, let's see now. I knew about water pressure since I was 9. Well, yes, Frizzoso, I'm sure a lot of people did. But I'm sure also comparing what we know of science now to what the average person knew of science, probably back in 1940, there probably is a significant difference there.
But as I mentioned earlier, I went on a mini rant about how this genre has basically disappeared. This is the age of submarines. Submarines were the hot thing. Everybody was into submarines. You had, like, again, pulp fictions that were recurring with submarines, comics recurring. You had movies about submarines. People loved submarines.
Well, as I recall from your earlier rant, you even said that Star Trek was kind of a submarine-esque story.
Yeah. They kind of took the submarine genre, which is, like the red alert genre, where things are going wrong, you're getting attacked on, you got to fire back, stuff like that. For half of it, that's like the navigation portion of being in the ship. And then they kind of took like the Western genre, which Roddenberry had experience with on Have Gun Will Travel prior to Star Trek, for the landing missions. It kind of mixed like both of those things together to make a new form of like sci-fi.
Well, even in their even in their ranking structure, right? And in their
it works a lot like the naval fleet.
But they're enlisted as well. They would use they'd use the naval pay grades, and for the officers it'd be ensign, lieutenant, junior grade, lieutenant commander, captain.
Which makes sense, right? Because if you were going to be doing stuff in space, historically, actually legally, until we created a space force very recently, the type of vessel and navigation, force space would have fallen under the Navy's jurisdiction. Not the Air Force, oddly enough. But also, we haven't had an Air Force for super long either, technically. Even our first airplane stuff was done under the Navy.
Well, as I recall, actually, from some of what I read from stuff from back, in around World War II and all that, the Air Force was actually born out of the Army, as I understand it, because
yeah. I mean, the Navy still has its own planes that are separate from the Air Force. So they were two completely different things.
Like the Air Force actually started out as the Army Air Corps, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Let's see a couple more of these comments here. The Super Friends show didn't know what to do with Superman. Well,
he retracted that. He meant to say the second one. You're looking at it from StreamYard. I'm seeing it on YouTube. He retracted that first message. He meant to say Aquaman.
Super Friends
They knew perfectly well what they wanted to do with Superman.
Didn't know what to do with Superman. Or didn't know. Super Friends didn't know what to do with Aquaman. Well, you have to remember too. Super Friends was first off. It was produced by Hanna-Barbera for a kid's audience. Their audience was basically kids. So, a lot of the flash bang and, real high colors and all that, because, as we've read, I know Shozo's been here a few times when I read some of the DC stories. I don't know how many of the DC stories you've listened to us read, but a lot of those DC stories back in the Golden Age were pretty dark at times. They weren't like the 60s versions that were all like more kid friendly, as it were, more color.
He's basically echoing what I was saying before, though. He probably typed that before he heard me say it because of the stream delay. But they literally did not really know what to do with Aquaman. Like, he is right on that. And part of it, again, is Aquaman is just really strong. That's one of the things he does. He just usually does his really strong things underwater. Sometimes on the surface, if he can stay hydrated long enough, he will lose his strength if he loses hydration. But he usually does the super strong stuff underwater. They already had a lot of super strong people in the Super Friends. So what do we do to make this guy unique, right? And it's like, we can't give him full underwater episodes very often either, because that also cuts out most of the rest of the Justice League. Yeah, some of them, they could go down there and do things, but it's such an off-balanced character to really use his strengths that pretty much all they do is like, we're going to have him talk to fish whenever we can. That's the thing that sets him apart from everybody.
Well, yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that's completely true, because depending upon which incarnation of Super Friends you're talking about, right? Like, they probably did it. They probably I would say that Aquaman was probably best featured in stuff like the all new Super Friends Hour, in which they had, in which they broke it up into segments, right? And you did have segments where when there was like a sea type emergency, like, for example, one of the common things that happened a lot was when a ship or a submarine started to malfunction. And so, he would have to go and help with that. And now, granted, a lot of times he'd ultimately call in his fish friends to help things out. But you could see there, he could do things underwater there in those episodes, like, for example, kind of manually steer a ship, like by manually steering the rudder.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's just like, I think in
that?
general, when they started cutting them into different segments, it just became easier for them to write, because a lot of the stuff, unless you start doing world-ending things every single week, there's really not a reason to have the whole Justice League together all the time.
Right.
Like, it's hard to give them all a moment to shine,
Right. Well, Super Friends had a number of different incarnations. The first one was in '73. That was the one where, basically the Super Friends, and they had the junior Super Friends at that time were just Wendy and Marvin and Wonder Dog, and they'd be doing a lot of like environmental stuff. This is around the time when, environmentalism was starting to really pick up there in the early '70s. You had a number of cartoons doing shows like that. Hanna-Barbera had another show around that same time, the Yogi's Gang that we talked about before, Yogi's Lark and Yogi's Gang, where you had environmentally themed shows, where ultimately by the end of the show that you'd understand what the message they were trying to send, and then we got to all new Super Friends. Now that's when they started breaking it up, in which you'd have like the one segment where you'd have two of the core group of Super Friends. Then you'd have the Wonder Twins. The Wonder Twins replaced Wendy and Marvin. They actually had superpowers and could actually help out physically. It wasn't just a case of like support help of doing research or what have you.
Like Super Marvin.
Then you have a segment with the entire Justice League, and then you'd have the last segment be one of the core members and the core members are like Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Aquaman. Basically, that was the core group. Oftentimes, Batman and Robin were put together as one character, basically. And they were usually, the core would be paired up with, a guest super friend, like one of the, more exterior members. And then you had go ahead.
I was talking to somebody recently. It's actually really funny about the fact that Batman and Robin were together in the Justice League as one character for the sake of the Super Friends. Because since he was already being used in that show with Batman, they completely cut Robin out of the Teen Titans show from around that era that they made and kind of just put Speedy into his place instead.
Oh, right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It was actually a little bit earlier. It was actually the Filmation run, because it was a Filmation run with the DC cartoons that you're talking about. It was when Filmation was doing like the Adventures of Superman, the New Adventures of Superboy, the Aquaman. They actually did have Adventures of Batman series as well. And so, they did that. And then of course you had then you had Challenge of the Super Friends, where the Justice League was basically facing the Legion of Doom, which was basically, and you didn't have any of the junior members involved at all.
Yeah. But I remember them saying that the main reason in the Filmation Teen Titans that they didn't use it is because every media was just trying to keep Batman and Robin together. So they couldn't pull Robin apart. And they basically just put Speedy in his place instead.
Right. And of course, as we know from the comics, Teen Titans were made up of like the sidekicks of a lot of the eras of the time. So then, of course, after Challenge of the Super Friends, we had the main Super Friends cast with, of course, it was actually initially in the all new Super Friends where you got the diversity characters added into the show. Black Vulcan, Samurai, Apache Chief, El Dorado.
Apache Chief, Chuck.
Yeah.
Horrible character, because there's like no reason for Apache Chief to be around with all of these other characters who have like super strength and can fly. Like, why do you need a guy who could just become giant? But he's such a cool character. I love Apache Chief.
Well, you know what's kind of funny too? I do remember, and it's probably one of the few episodes of this particular show that I actually did check out, or a little bit. I don't know if I watched the whole thing or just kind of scanned it a bit, but Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law, actually
I know the one you're talking about,
where they basically made a huge parody of Apache Chief, where they were talking about how he spilled hot coffee on, basically the implication was, on his private parts.
Yeah, indecent exposure in public was the problem. Was public indecent exposure, because all he's wearing is a loincloth.
Oh yeah. Well, also, yeah, and also it's like, you know, well, yeah, I mean, when he grows big, it'd be like, you just look up. uh, it looks like it shows it has a few more items here, and I know we've kind of got off track here. We'll try to wrap this conversation up and at least try to get to one more story. 135, so I should probably get back to the stories here, but let's see where we're at here. Okay, yeah, Aquaman one was the last one we actually read. So Justice League Unlimited was also aimed at kids, and they did Aquaman fine. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, different time period though, right?
I would
And I
also say
wasn't
that
necessarily.
Justice League Unlimited also had the strength of the new Super Friends kind of like Power Hour one, right? Where a lot of Justice League Unlimited episodes were kind of just like one offs that sometimes could focus on a single character. Like they were
Mhm,
already kind of doing that with Unlimited. And when you choose to do that, like there was the big storyline for JLA, and then we get to JLU, and they're more comfortable doing individual stories. You just have more leeway with playing into a character's strength.
mhm. Yeah, let's see what. There was a Teen Titans cartoon in the 70s. Um, no, not one in the 70s. It was late 60s actually. If you're talking about the Filmation one, which is the one we're talking about, that came out in like the late 60s. That came out like 67, 68.
67. It was
Yeah.
67. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was a more modern one in back in 2006, I believe, or mid 2000s. They even brought Apache Chief into the DCAU. Yeah, actually, they did have that. I think that was actually a. I don't remember if that was a Justice League Unlimited or a Justice League episode. Actually, it might have been an Unlimited episode because I think it was a one-off where basically Justice League Unlimited brought in characters that were kind of like pastiches to the Super Friends characters, the Black Vulcan,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Samurai, who basically would have very similar powers and again almost make fun of. Well, they Justice League and Justice League Unlimited had always made some passing references at times. When they first debuted as Justice League, Flash made the comment. Flash, voiced by Michael Rosenberg or Rosenbaum, um, said, "Oh, you mean like some kind of Super Friends?" And then Superman
Yeah.
replied, "More like a Justice League." Anyways, we are
Well,
coming up.
Wendy and Marvin were brought into the comics later too,
Yeah,
where they had the Justice League basically started a university for like solve crime fighting, not only superhero vigilante stuff, like people who want to go into forensics and everything. And their time on the Justice League as interns were turned into college credits,
yeah,
which you if you're doing a free internship, especially for superheroes, you better be getting some type of credit hours for it.
yeah. Anyways, we're coming up on 140, so I should at least try to get to one more story here before we we got onto that sidetrack there. It was a good conversation. Dragon's Teeth. Overall, what do you think of the art we're seeing here, Metal?
I think the art's solid. I don't have a problem with any of the art here, especially this one right here that we're like scrolling past. I like the deep blacks for the waves and the sea. Really makes the people in it pop out more. So it's like it's all solid art.
Dr. Miracle.
The further we get into, the more and more different artists are being comfortable with what you can and can't print. So they're going heavier on like the spotted blacks to add higher contrast.
Hmm. Simple Snitch. Johnny Fox.
And obviously, printing is also progressing slowly but surely this entire time. So,
Oh,
like,
remember,
we can slowly start seeing people get away with more color combinations and stuff.
yeah, we're in August of 1940 here, so
Yeah.
Foul Shy, that's a tech story. Liberty Labs. Now, this story is set during the revolution. Actually, I'm going to go off camera here one more time because since this is a 2 hour block, even though we are, even though we're in daylight savings time, when we're doing 2 hour blocks like this, of course, sun does start to go down at some point, which it is going down now here where I'm at. So,
sun. I think the sun's already down here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll be right back here.
Mm-hmm. Like, I don't see any light coming through the window of my room at all. Though it's usually pretty dim anyway, but when the sun's up in the air, the light pollution stops me from being able to see my ceiling light. So I'm pretty sure it's completely dark outside already.
All right, I'm back. So let's get into this next story here. All right. So in order to quell patriotic activities of the Americans in Boston, the British have sent troops to capture John Hancock and Samuel Adams. All right. So remember, this is set in the Revolutionary War period. Squire Potter, Tom's Tory uncle, offers the troops quarters in his house, and with their help, separates Tom from Will, Uncle Ned, and their faithful Indian friend, Wanoko.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Those filthy redcoats.
But I am an American. I belong with them. Bah! These fools with their talk of freedom. Not now, Will. Get out. Never poison the boy's mind again, or we'll arrest you for treason. And we are going to arrest Adams and Hancock. I'll be seeing you, Tom. Tom is locked into an attic room, but what did Will mean? What's this? What's this trap door? Gosh! Ha ha! So a company's captured some rebels in their secret headquarters, waiting for contraband arms. If I can only get past the sentries, sentries, Will. Look, Wanoko is here, and he's got guns and horses. We must hide the guns, then pick up Adams and Hancock. We'll hide the guns in the cellar. They'll never think to look there.
Why would they never think to look there? Everything's stored in the cellar. That's the first place I'd look.
Don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
We'll put the guns in these empty casks. Ugh, hurry. We go now. Squire Potter has seen us. After them! Shoot the horses! We must get past the gate. Up, you fools! Wake up! Stop them! Watch out, Wanoko! We're past. we must get to Hawkins, Will. Hurry, patriots! You've come! Saved! I did realize that they're probably still all, even Americans are still talking with British accents. Like,
Well, actually, their accent would still be closer to ours today than modern British, because the modern British accent did not really exist back then. It would be almost like the transatlantic accent, but taking some more of the Britisher parts out of it. Because the transatlantic accent was influenced by the change in the British accent that came back over here later on. But we probably speak closer to Shakespeare here in the States than the people in England do.
Let's go, sir. Too late. We've got them. But Wanoko escapes. Good luck, Wanoko. Get him. You can keep the rebel leaders in my house until morning. Aye, we hunt for those contraband arms. We'll give you a taste of rebel treatment, the cellar for you. If we only had ammunition, the redcoats won't know that. Now to get Adams and Hancock. Wanoko told us where the guns were hidden. It's lucky you were put here too. The Patriots overpower the sentries. Be good. Maxim no more. What?
I think he's saying make 'em no noise. You gotta read his stuff like a very stereotypical, like old school Indian.
I just did. I saw it as an X and not a K. That's the thing.
Yeah. Make 'em no noise. That's how he would sound.
Make 'em no noise. This is an outrage. Not so loud, or it may be worse. Countrymen, you're free again. But what of the arms? We'll borrow your uniforms and take you with us. Yes, you'll go under strict British guard. You men, stay here till dawn with the redcoats. Don't let them see you, Wanoko. Look, asleep on the job again. Wake up, fools! We must have been caught napping. You think? But these are the British? In His Majesty's name, prisoners under strict guard. You boys are true lovers of liberty to have done what you did tonight. We're just Americans, Mr. Adams. That's that. Thanks for helping us again, Wanoko. A new adventure of Liberty Lads next month. All right. Overall impressions, Metal?
I think it was funnier than it intended to be.
Did it have anything to do with my attempt at a British accent, or
no? I'm talking just strictly the story was funnier than it intended to be, and one of the reasons too, I think, is looking at this from an adult's perspective. And I'm looking at Wolnoko, the like Indian friend here, and it's like there were a lot of Native Americans, Indians that fought alongside of us during the revolution and stuff like that, because there's a lot of them that just kind of moved into our society. Most of the ones that did were dressed like everyone else because they had integrated into our society. But then we have to remember they're writing this story for kids. So it's like, if you want a kid to immediately think somebody is a Native American, you don't do the accurate thing and put them in the same clothes that all of the colonists were wearing. You have to make them look like a stereotypical Indian image to a kid of that time. So part of that makes this funnier than it is already. But then also just a lot of the individual things that they're doing are just a little goofy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because they're trying to write at a level that they think the kids will be enjoying this at. But doing that, I think, unintentionally leads them to making goofy actions and decisions.
All right. Anything more you want to say on that before we?
No, pretty good. I always like revisiting revolutionary times. It's one of the best eras to write about.
All right. So it is like 1:51. So we're going to start to wrap up here. So we got through 3 of the 4 stories. Let's get caught up on the comments, and then we'll do kind of the closing arc of like best and worst, and then we'll get into this day in each history, and then we'll wrap things up. So let me see. So what do we have here? Okay, so yeah. All right, so again, these comics from the 40s have all the cast as morons. Well, I don't know if they're What do you think on that comment there? You think the cast are morons?
Sometimes unintentionally, yeah. I don't think it's their intent for the cast to all be morons. I think it's just the way they end up being written sometimes.
Let's see. The characters in these old comics are smart as residents of Springfield, despite being serious. Metal, any comments on that comment?
I think just the same thing. All of these comments are kind of just like strung together, so it's just going to be the same response as before.
Huh.
And I don't think it applies to all the comics. There are definitely different publications. That's the word I'm looking for. Different publications, different magazines that some were stronger than others. And I think part of it too comes down to who you could afford, right? There are a lot of people, maybe some of them weren't necessarily the best writers, but you need to pay anybody, so they hop in and they do their thing. While there's some publications like
when you're saying who you could afford, are you talking about the talent like writing and drawing the comics?
Yes, yeah, right.
Because like we can look at the comics were 10 cents. Didn't matter which company.
Yeah, so. No, whether like the kid could afford it, like who the publication could afford to pay to make the comic, right? So like you look at Shadow Comics. I think the Shadow who came from like pulp and everything and is end up on radio, they have a higher standard. With that license also comes more money to spend on better talent. So you end up with like better stuff, not just with the Shadow, but the other comics in the same book too.
Right. Like the original Iron Monroe or Doc Savage, some other key things. So okay, and then it wasn't until the Silver Age where characters in comics started being reasonably intelligent. Well, you also have to remember, because of the Comics Code Authority too, in some respects, the characters of the Silver Age, in some ways, were actually a little bit goofier than the Golden Age characters.
Often even dumber sometimes too.
Because of the restrictions that were placed on comics by the Comics Code Authority, the crooks almost had to be somewhat stupid or
it depends. It varies from comic to comic. Some of my favorite comics are Silver Age comics. But not every character was treated evenly.
Right. All right. So with all that being said, now, so we did get through. So we did get through three. Did get through three stories tonight. Um, so so of the three. So we went through the Champ, Neptina, and Liberty Lads. So of the three, Metal, which one did you like the best or made the best impression on you, and why?
Well, I don't think really any of these stories left that good of an impression on me. But probably by default, the Liberty Lads, because yeehaw, American, let's go. Back to the Revolutionary War. I'll spend all day there. I don't care.
Right. Even though, again, it seemed fun, you thought of it as unintentionally being funnier than it was meant to be, right?
Yeah. Not a lot really happened, I think, in any of the three comics we read. You know, like they were kind of all just a little slow paced and a little more talky than actiony.
Yeah. Well, also, so the page count for each of them. So for the Champ, it was 10 pages. For Neptina, it was 6, and for Liberty Lads, it was 5.
Yeah.
That may have played a factor in. Okay, so basically, of the three, you felt that at least the one that you felt was more or less the best, or
the one I was most attached to
was Liberty Lads. All right.
Yeah.
Well, of the remaining two, then here's the second half of that question. Of the remaining two, oh boy, and I didn't even realize I'm so used to doing that sorry about that. I kind of blocked you out. That didn't mean to.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm so used to doing that for the regular show. I forgot. All I had to do was just close out the thing there. All right. So the two remaining stories, the Champ and Neptina, which one did you like the least or made the least impression, and why?
Oh, Neptina.
Neptina?
Yeah.
So why did that make the least impression for you?
It was just kind of boring.
Hmm.
You know, aside from like the complaint of catching me with the water pressure thing, it was just kind of boring. It was a little exciting when they involved the giant pistol shrimps, and there was like a sea monster, but like the problem was like we're going through what does a story need. The fight with the sea serpent didn't actually add anything to that story. It was almost like a non sequitur that was thrown in there.
All right. So the one you liked the best was Liberty Lads. The one you liked the least was Neptina.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're done with that part now. So now what we're gonna do is and I know we're coming up on 2 hours already, so I'm gonna try to wrap things up real quick here. So now what we're gonna do is now we're going to, of course, take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history, as today is, of course, or this weekend in Nietzsche history, rather. March 8, 2006, March 7, 2011, March 7, 1996, and March 8, 2021. All right. So now, with today being, of course, Sunday, March the 8th, it wasn't until like 1951 or so. Till then, I just expect everyone is kind of dumb. All right. So,
My bigger expectation there is not that everyone's kind of dumb. I would try to look more at trends because people liked this stuff back then. I think they just wanted different things out of their media necessarily. You know, it's kind of like how cartoons are very, very different at different ages, even though, from a technical perspective, they couldn't look the way they do now. But from a writing perspective, you could have included most of the same types of jokes or humors or storylines, but people wanted different things out of their stuff at different times.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anyway, with today being Sunday, March the 8th, 2026, let's go ahead and take a look back at this weekend in niche history. And let me see. So first, I'm going to go back to yesterday. So we're going to go back 30 years ago yesterday, as on 30 years ago yesterday, on March 7th of 1996. As soon as I pull that up here. The sixth season of Beavis and Butthead came to a conclusion on yesterday's date 30 years ago. So 30 years ago yesterday, the sixth season of Beavis and Butthead concluded on MTV. Now, moving ahead to the year 2011 from that. Which was 15
Can't believe they brought Beavis and Butthead back.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure really how Beavis and Butthead would work in today's world, considering all the wokeness. I have a feeling. If now again, I didn't really watch much of Beavis and Butthead when it first came out. I didn't, and I haven't watched the remake at all. But I did understand.
I have seen the remake.
Huh?
I have seen the remake. It was pretty much just more Beavis and Butthead.
They didn't try to wokeify it or anything like that?
Well, I mean, it's owned and created by Mike Judge, so it was still basically just Beavis and Butthead. I didn't think it was that great, though. A lot of the jokes were kind of tired. Even compared to like Beavis and Butthead. There was a good episode though where he became like enamored with fire. I think the fire episode was pretty good, but a lot of it was just like it was like funniest home videos, right? They would take videos and they would have them on the couch reacting to it in between the plots, like old Beavis and Butthead. It's kind of the thing you get from YouTube now. So there's nothing special about having two cartoon characters do it. You could watch a VTuber do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, that's probably actually, from MTV Animation, the one show that I really got into watching that I kind of liked was a spinoff of Beavis and Butthead, Daria.
Yeah.
Daria was actually pretty good, even though they would play up a lot of the stereotypes, right? But
Yeah, I remember
still,
Daria.
yeah.
My favorite spinoff, though they completely divorced it, was King of the Hill, since Hank Hill's first appearance was in Beavis and Butthead.
I didn't even know that. But...
Yep, he was their neighbor, their redneck neighbor. Then they Judge just like completely divorced the Hill or Hank Hill, because I don't think the rest of the Hill family was in the show, from Beavis and Butthead, and just created a whole new kind of world around it.
Yeah. So anyway, so 15 years ago, back in 2011, 15 years ago yesterday, back in 2011, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the American Airlines Arena. Now, one of the big things that happened on this date was it was announced at this show that the first diva, Sunny, would be inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame. Now, of course, Sunny, aka Tammy Lynn Sitch, has since had some issues recently. She's basically in jail now, in her old age here, having killed.
Well, let me also correct this. He wasn't called Hank Hill in Beavis and Butthead. I need to correct this. He was called Tom Anderson. It was technically a different character, but Judge on many occasions had said that Hank Hill is just Tom Anderson.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
Tom Anderson was the prototype, and Hank Hill was the character. Kind of like Happy Rabbit was the prototype to Bugs Bunny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So on yesterday's date, 15 years ago, WWE held the Monday Night Raw event from the American Airlines Arena in Dallas, Texas. That I just mentioned, of course. Sonny was announced as being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame at that show. Awesome. The main event saw Dolph Ziggler defeat John Morrison, 5 minutes 29 seconds. Daniel Bryan defeated Sheamus via countout. Eve Torres retained the WWE Divas Championship over Nikki Bella. Randy Orton defeated David Otunga in just under 2 minutes. So that's all that happened on that date. Now we're moving on to the 8th. Let's see. Well, apparently we have some more comments here. Didn't know Hank Hill was in Beavis and Butthead. He refused the design. All right. So now we'll move on to today's date, the 8th. So
Yeah. You know what's funny too? You know whose name was also Tom Anderson?
who?
Neo. That was Neo's actual name in the Matrix before he was called Neo. He was Thomas A. Anderson. That's
Well,
why
I would
like you hear
imagine
Agent
Tom
Smith
Anderson's
always
a pretty
going,
common name, though.
Mr. Anderson.
We use him autocorrect.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah. All right. So, anyways, so now going back 20 years ago today, back to 2006, on this date in the year 2006, 20 years ago today, the first issue of American Virgin from DC's Vertigo line went on sale on this date back in 2006. Sold for $2.99 with 32 pages. Part 1 of the Head story.
Oh my God! Look at that byline, from the Bible Belt to the Chastity Belt.
Well, with a comic name like American Virgin, I had a feeling there was going to be some. Well, it was on its Vertigo imprint too, the more adult imprint to begin with.
Yeah. See, if this was in a normal print, and I'm like, okay, cool, as long as it doesn't get too adult. But the fact that it's in Vertigo is like, I don't think I want to read this.
Anyway, so the writer for the story was Stephen T. Siegel. Becky Clunan did the art. Lettering was done by Jared K. Fletcher, and Brian Miller did the coloring. So the first issue of, and this comic apparently ran for 23 issues from what I saw. So the first issue of American Version went on sale on this date back in 2006, 20 years ago.
Ran for 2 years. That's a lot more than I thought it would.
Yeah. I assume it's some American Pie thing. All right,
I don't even know anything about what the plot is in that. I'm probably better off not knowing.
Yeah. Well, based on the title and based on what you said the byline was, I'm guessing it probably has a certain amount of risque humor in there, to say the least. Right?
Yeah. It's a bunch of edging, I guess.
All right. So, anyways, now moving on to the last piece of niche history, which was 5 years ago today. On this date, 5 years ago today, back in 2001. produced by Studio Kara and distributed by Toei. Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, was released in theaters on this date 5 years ago today. So 5 years ago today, back in 2021, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0, Thrice Upon a Time, was released in movie theaters on this date back in 2021. All right. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here tonight. So of course, before we do head out, Metal, I'm going to give you one more shot here. If you want to promote anything you're doing,
Drop my links and stuff.
Right. You know the shtick, right?
Well, maybe.
And of course, if you can stick around for a couple minutes afterwards for post show, that'd be appreciated as well.
Anyhow, so like I said at the beginning, the Metal, I create a lot of different things, but probably the thing I prefer sharing the most is my website, xdynamischaos.com, named after the lead story, X Dynamis Chaos, where you can find a lot of my fiction there, be it some of it more actiony, some of it more comedy, some of it more fantasy, some of it more sci-fi, but it's there in comic and prose form, plus a lot of articles about the world. You could genuinely spend hours on the site if you wanted to. And during the week, I often stream, recently more video games than not, over at the Vomitorium. We've been making our way, catching up with the story of Genshin Impact, because that account is really, really far behind, but we do play other things from time to time.
All right. Okay, anything more you want to say before we wrap up here, Metal?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I thank you all for being here tonight. Metal, as I asked if you can stick around for just a couple minutes for post show, real quick, be appreciated. But with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. We'll be back here tomorrow night with of course, more Niche News. Next Sunday, of course, we'll be continuing our trip down Comics History Lane, looking at comics that went on sale August 1940. Don't remember off the top of my head what comics we'll be reading, but I believe, let me see. I think Rick will be with me next week, I believe. I'll have to double check that. I believe Rick will be with me next week. So, but I'll have to double check that. So with all that being said, I thank you all for being here tonight and hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.